When the directorate finally admitted its mistake, it was too late to correct it quietly. The error had been logged 3 standard cycles earlier, buried beneath routine trade disputes and migration petitions. A small, yellow marker in an administrative archive. An unremarkable note: uncatalogued sapient activity detected in peripheral zone R19. Status: low urgency. No one expected that note to matter. After all, R19 was empty space by directorate standards, too dense with gravity wells, too chaotic with radiation storms, too resource poor to justify attention. Civilizations did not rise there, at least not ones that survived long enough to matter. And yet, signals had been leaking from that darkness for decades, not elegant ones, not the smooth quantum harmonics of advanced species. These were crude radio bursts, loud, repetitive, emotional, filled with music, arguments, laughter, and war propaganda broadcast openly into the void. The analysts assumed it was debris chatter, a dead species, a relic echo. They were wrong. By the time humanity learned the directorate existed, humanity had already learned its language. The first meeting. The diplomatic chamber aboard Consensus Station was designed to intimidate. Vaulted ceilings, gravity tuned to the galactic median, air composition adjusted to be tolerable but uncomfortable for most species. Everything about the room reminded newcomers that they were small and replaceable. The humans noticed. They just didn't care. Ambassador Elena Reyes sat at the table without assistive supports, her feet planted firmly against the deck. The gravity here was heavier than Earth standard, and several aides had suggested she request compensation. She refused. Across from her floated beings of crystal lattices, articulated gas sacs, jointed exoskeletons, and neural light clouds. The directorate represented over 6,000 recognized species. Humanity was species number 6001, and already labeled non-strategic. Director Threx of many votes initiated the proceedings. Human representatives, the entity intoned, its voice resonating through translation fields. Your species has been granted provisional recognition. A protected expansion sphere of 50 light-years will be assigned. Elena blinked. 50? She asked. Yes. This exceeds the allocation typically granted to civilizations of your developmental tier. Murmurs rippled across the chamber. For many species, 50 light-years was generous. Elena leaned forward. Our home system alone occupies a gravitational influence zone that overlaps nearly 12 light-years, she said calmly. Your offer would place several of our colonies outside our own protection. Silence. The directorate had not expected math. Humanity's file was thin, average intelligence, moderate technological progression, excessive internal conflict, high emotional volatility. But what truly shaped the directorate's opinion was Earth's gravity. Earth sat near the theoretical upper boundary for life-bearing worlds. Any higher, and chemical rocketry would fail. Orbital escape would be economically irrational. Most species born on such worlds never reach the stars without outside intervention. Humans did it anyway. That detail was noted. It was not respected. Physically, humans were unimpressive by directorate standards. Shorter than average, lacking natural armor, claws, venom, or psionics. Their strength-to-mass ratio was unusual, but dismissed as an evolutionary curiosity. What no one logged properly was adaptation speed. Humans adjusted to foreign gravity in weeks, environmental variance in days, tactical doctrine in hours. They were inconveniently flexible. At first, humans became a curiosity. Their engineers struck malfunctioning machines to fix them, and disturbingly, it worked. Their diplomats smiled too easily. Their traders negotiated aggressively, then invited counterparts to eat. They laughed at themselves. When older species mocked humanity's history, its wars, divisions, near extinctions, the humans didn't deny it. They nodded. Yes, they said, we survived those. The joke spread. If pressured, humans will abandon their cradle world. They'll trade territory for time. They prefer comfort over pride. Even some humans heard the jokes. They laughed too. That was the mistake. Humanity's early economic rise was fast, too fast. They manufactured durable goods cheaply. Their logistics chains were absurdly efficient. They consumed resources aggressively, but wasted almost nothing. Their largest trade partner, the Virile Ascendancy, supplied rare organics in exchange for human fabrication output. The deal collapsed overnight. A single offhand remark by a junior human official, mocking the Ascendancy's missionary culture, triggered a moral outrage cascade. Embargo motions were filed, sanctions proposed. Only 2 species signed them. The directorate expected panic. Human markets dipped, then stabilized, then adapted. Humanity didn't protest. They diversified. They always did. Not everyone laughed at the humans. Beyond directorate space, along the fractured border regions, existed a power that did not joke. The Car Void legions had consumed empires older than most stars had planets. They were not expansionists in the traditional sense. They harvested weakness, not territory. When the legions noticed humanity, it was not because of wealth. It was because humans rebuilt too quickly. The legion observers concluded, this species does not collapse correctly. That made them interesting and dangerous. The day the car envoy entered the directorate chamber unannounced, every species present felt the room grow colder. The envoy did not threaten. It did not posture. It simply stated, human expansion has intersected car operational space. 10 light years will be ceded, including Sol. Earth. The room filled with pity. Humans were expected to fold, to evacuate, to survive. Ambassador Reyes did not laugh. She stood. The United Human Polity rejects these terms, she said evenly. You are not negotiating borders. You are asking for our origin. The car envoy tilted its head. Then prepare for extinction. Reyes nodded once. Then prepare for resistance. The silence after. As the human delegation exited, the directorate whispered. They believed they were witnessing the end of a young species. They did not yet understand the truth. Humanity had already planned for this. They had never believed the galaxy was kind. They had never assumed survival was guaranteed. They had prepared quietly. And now, the galaxy was about to learn why humans were never meant to be labeled non-strategic. The first human systems fell in silence. No heroic last stands. No dramatic fleet engagements. No desperate pleas broadcast across the stars. When the Car Void legions crossed into human territory, they encountered something deeply unsettling. Empty space. Mining stations powered down but intact. Orbital habitats drifting without life signs. Shipyards stripped clean, their scaffolds bare like picked bones. At first, the car assumed sabotage. Then they realized something worse. The humans had left. The evacuation. No one saw the directorate learned the truth too late. Human logistics fleets, previously dismissed as civilian transport, had been quietly upgraded years earlier. Not for war, for movement. Every colony world possessed layered evacuation protocols. Civilian mobilization drills disguised as disaster preparedness. Agricultural worlds with redundant hydroponics capable of being disassembled and relaunched. Even the humans' so-called inefficient redundancy suddenly made sense. They weren't inefficient. They were portable. Within weeks of the car advance, over 92% of humanity's non-military population vanished beyond mapped space. They did not flee toward allies. They fled away from everyone, into the dark between stars. The massive vessels the Directorate had noticed months earlier were finally understood. The humans called them arc fleets. They were not warships. They were cities. Each arc carried millions of civilians, self-contained ecosystems, fabrication arrays, medical vaults, and libraries holding the entirety of human history. They were slow. They were defenseless. And they were unstoppable because they did not need to fight. They only needed time. The Car Void legions were used to fear. Species resisted instinctively, poorly, emotionally. Humanity did neither. Instead, the humans allowed the car to advance deeper and deeper into abandoned territory, stretching supply lines thin while encountering no resistance. The car interpreted this as confirmation of their assessment. This species lacks resolve, so they escalated. They began orbital bombardments of evacuated worlds, industrial centers, agricultural planets, even Earth's outer colonies, turning them into radioactive warnings. The Directorate protested. Human representatives did not. They sat silently as world after world burned. Some wept. None begged. The first strike that wasn't then came the transmission. A car logistics hub, 300 light years from the front, went dark. No explosion, no debris, just silence. Moments later, another hub failed, then another. Within a single standard hour, 12 car food processing worlds lost biosignatures simultaneously. The Directorate panicked. The humans finally spoke. "We advised you," Ambassador Reyes said quietly, "that we were not defending territory." The chamber demanded explanation. Reyes continued, "We are defending people. The Car Void legions were apex predators, biologically obligate carnivores. Their civilization depended on vast livestock worlds engineered over centuries. Human analysts had discovered this early, and humans had a long, uncomfortable history with food scarcity. Their retaliation was precise. Targeted biological agents, non-lethal to most galactic species, were released into car livestock ecosystems. Pathogens that rendered flesh toxic, parasites that spread through herds in days. No worlds were destroyed. They were simply unusable. Within weeks, car food production dropped by 87%. Riots erupted. The legions had never prepared for starvation. Then came the second blow. Human diplomats proposed a trade embargo, not against the car military, but against everything: fuel, medical compounds, luxury stimulants, industrial catalysts. The Directorate hesitated. The humans didn't argue. They simply shared projections. If the embargo failed, humanity would produce enough food independently to collapse galactic markets. They had already begun. Reluctantly, every major power signed. Even isolationist states. The car laughed at first. They stopped laughing when their black markets dried up. Starving predators grow reckless. The car shifted tactics, launching direct assaults against human agricultural fleets they believed existed. That was when humanity finally fought, not with fleets, with people. Human boarding craft, small, crude, brutally efficient, swarmed car capital ships. Humans fought in close quarters, exploiting gravity tolerance and endurance. They did not seek conquest. They disabled propulsion, life support, food storage. Then they left. The car learned to self-destruct their ships rather than let humans board. That only accelerated their losses. When the car finally reached remaining human agricultural worlds, they found resistance fierce beyond reason. Humans defended farms harder than factories, and when defeat became inevitable, they burned them. Crops destroyed, livestock slaughtered, soil sterilized, not out of spite, out of denial. Nothing usable was left behind. Reports from car space grew desperate. Civil unrest, cannibalism, fleet mutinies, and then public executions. Human civilians captured during early raids were executed live, broadcast across the galaxy as a threat. For the first time since contact, human representatives reacted, not with rage, with silence so deep it frightened even the directorate. Then the car made their final mistake. They brought a gravitational destabilization weapon into the Sol system. They cracked Earth, not destroyed, fractured. 12 broken continents drifting under artificial gravity fields. The chamber waited for humanity to scream. They did not. They mourned. And then they hardened. Every species watching understood something had changed. Humanity had lost its cradle. And now, nothing restrained them. The galaxy expected vengeance. That was the mistake. When Earth fractured, every historical model predicted the same outcome. A species driven into genocidal rage, lashing outward until nothing remained. Humanity did something far more terrifying. They became deliberate. Across the Ark fleets, humanity entered a period later called the Quiet Weeks. No broadcasts, no speeches, no declarations, only names. Entire fleets paused while casualty lists were read aloud. Every city, every culture, every lost coastline of Earth preserved in record. Then the work resumed, not fueled by anger, fueled by certainty. The humans had reached a conclusion that no other species ever had. We cannot be allowed to exist at the mercy of empires. And they began acting accordingly. Up until then, humanity's strategy had been indirect. Starvation, embargo, denial. After Earth, that changed. The Car Void legions did not notice at first. Their scouts simply failed to return. Entire patrols vanished without distress signals. Navigation buoys went silent. Deep space relays ceased transmitting. The Car High Command assumed mechanical failure. Then a core world disappeared, not destroyed, removed. Human physicists had finalized a theory centuries earlier and never tested it. They called it spatial compression collapse. The galaxy would later call it something else. A human task group entered the outer orbit of Car Prime Beta, deployed a lattice of gravitational anchors, and activated them simultaneously. Space folded inward. Matter did not explode. It compacted. An entire planetary mass collapsed into a stable microsingularity, harmless to surrounding systems, impossible to reverse. No radiation, no debris, just absence. The message was clear. We can erase you cleanly. The Car Void legions had been unstoppable for 5 centuries. They had never faced annihilation without spectacle. Now they were watching entire worlds vanish quietly. Fleet commanders disobeyed orders. Some defected. Others turned their ships toward unclaimed space and ran. The infinite armada stopped advancing. Then it stopped coordinating. Then it stopped existing as a unified force. Human fleets finally appeared in force, not as massive dreadnoughts, as precision swarms, modular vessels that reconfigured mid-battle, ships that repaired themselves using battlefield debris, weapons that targeted infrastructure instead of lives. Humanity wasn't conquering. They were dismantling. Power grids collapsed. Shipyards ceased function. Command hierarchies unraveled. Entire car systems went dark without a single orbital bombardment. The car leadership attempted one final display of strength. They gathered their remaining fleets around Car Prime itself, a symbolic stand. Humanity did not engage. Instead, they transmitted a single message, broadcast across all frequencies, translated into every known language. It was not a threat. It was a statement. This war ends when your ability to wage war ends. Moments later, human strikes disabled every orbital weapon platform around Car Prime simultaneously. Then they waited. 3 days later, the car requested terms. Not negotiations, terms. They arrived at the directorate chambers, thinner, quieter, visibly starving. The same human representatives appeared, older now, colder, still composed. The car leader spoke first. "You have broken us." The human response was immediate. "No," said Admiral Felicia Arthas. "We broke war." Humanity did not demand territory. They did not demand tribute. They demanded restrictions. Permanent demilitarization of the Carvoid legions, dissolution of the infinite armada, independent oversight of car technological development. And one final clause: no species may claim sovereignty through annihilation. The directorate protested. Humanity reminded them gently that they now had the means to enforce this doctrine alone. The chamber went silent. The treaty was signed. In the decades that followed, the galaxy changed. Empires stopped expanding through conquest. Military budgets shrank. Diplomacy became cautious, because everyone understood the same truth. Humanity did not seek domination. They sought deterrence, and they had demonstrated the cost of ignoring it. Earth was not abandoned, it was repaired. Using technologies never again demonstrated publicly. Human engineers stitched continents back together using gravitational scaffolding. Oceans refilled. Ecosystems restored from archived DNA. Earth became a sanctuary world. No weapons, no fleets, just memory. Centuries later, a cadet at the Galactic Academy asked a simple question. Why didn't humanity conquer the galaxy when they could? The instructor answered quietly. Because humans learned something the rest of us still struggle to understand. He gestured to the stars. Greater than survival is not about who wins wars. It's about making sure wars stop needing winners.